Breaking news from around your world on this Monday, March 11th, 2019. I'm Larry Rice. Authorities and airlines in 5 nations have grounded all Boeing 737 MAX 8 type aircraft Monday following the crash of an Ethiopian Airlines jetliner that killed 157 people. The plane, bound for Nairobi, was carrying passengers from at least 30 countries and crashed Sunday shortly after takeoff in clear weather outside Addis Ababa. Witnesses said the jet was making a strange rattling noise and trailed smoke and debris as it swerved above a field of panicked cows before crashing. Investigators found the flight recorders from the jet, which could provide clues to the cause of the crash. Ethiopian Airlines had been using 5 of the new aircraft and is awaiting delivery of 25 more. This 737 was delivered to Ethiopian Airlines in November and had flown just 1,200 hours. Sunday's crash happened shortly after takeoff, strikingly similar to that of a Lion Air 737 MAX 8 that crashed in the Java Sea last year, killing 189 people. Besides the groundings by Ethiopia, China, and Indonesia, Caribbean carrier Cayman Airways and Comair, the operator of British Airways and Kulula flights in South Africa, says they also grounded their Boeing 737 MAX 8 fleets while they consult with Boeing, other operators, and technical experts. The cause of the crash is under investigation, and the crash is likely to renew questions about the MAX 8, the newest version of Boeing's 737 airliner, which has become the world's most common passenger jet. A State Department official on Monday says she thinks there will be a third summit between President Donald Trump and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, but no date has been set. Trump and Kim's second summit in Vietnam last month collapsed over differences on U.S. demands for Pyongyang's denuclearization and North Korea's demand for sanctions relief. Trump's national security advisor, John Bolton, said that the president was open to another summit with Kim, but more time may be needed. Trump and Kim first met in Singapore last June. Undersecretary of State for Arms Control and International Security, Andrea Thompson, said Secretary of State Mike Pompeo and the president have been very clear that they will remain open to the dialogue. They haven't got a date on the calendar, but our teams continue to work towards that. Is there a next summit? Well, I think there will be. Thompson made the comments at the Carnegie Nuclear Conference in Washington. Thompson said it was incredibly important that all countries continued to maintain United Nations sanctions on North Korea until it gave up its nuclear weapons. Trump said he would be disappointed if Pyongyang were to resume weapons testing and reiterated his belief in his good relationship with Kim despite the collapse of the summit. An Indonesian woman accused in the 2017 chemical poison murder of the North Korean leader's half-brother was freed on Monday after a Malaysian court dropped the charge in a case that drew suspicions of being a political assassination. As the court announced its decision, 26-year-old Siti Asia turned to her Vietnamese co-defendant, 30-year-old Dong Thi Huong, in the dock, and the 2 women who had been facing the death penalty together embraced in tears. They had been accused of poisoning Kim Jong-nam, the half-brother of North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, with liquid VX, a banned chemical weapon, at Kuala Lumpur Airport in February 2017. Asia was expected to leave immediately for her home country. Following the dramatic decision to release Asia, a defense lawyer asked for an adjournment in the case against Huang in order to submit a request that charges be dropped against her too. Prosecutors did not immediately explain the decision, and they did not drop the charges against Huang. Defense lawyers have maintained that the women were pawns in an assassination orchestrated by North Korean agents. Kim Jong-nam had lived in exile in Macau for several years before the killing, having fled his homeland after his half-brother became North Korea's leader in 2011 following their father's death. The U.S.-backed Syrian Democratic Forces started an offensive against the last enclave controlled by the Islamic State in eastern Syria. The assault is intended to drive ISIS out of the last part of the caliphate that once covered a third of Iraq and Syria, although the Islamist extremist group is still considered a major security threat capable of guerrilla attacks. The SDF offensive had been delayed for weeks to give civilians, including the wives and children of ISIS fighters, an opportunity to leave the area. The offensive began after civilians stopped emerging over the weekend. Iranian President Hassan Rouhani began a historic three-day visit to Iraq Monday to strengthen the nation's relationship amid sanctions and isolation efforts by the United States. Iran Foreign Minister Mohammad Javad Zarif said the visit will help improve relations between the two nations that have long had an adversarial relationship, including a war between 1980 and 1988. Zarif told state-run Press TV, "Without Iran and Iraq, the region won't be safe and stable." Rouhani told reporters Monday a stronger relationship with Baghdad is welcome, despite Iraq's close ties with the U.S. and its efforts to fight the Islamic State. The United States last year abandoned a multinational deal with Iran that lifted sanctions in exchange for limits on Tehran's nuclear program. Iraqi President Barham Salih confirmed that Rouhani's visit aims to improve relations. Iran is Iraq's largest economic trading partner. Federal authorities arrested more domestic terror suspects last year than they did people inspired or linked to international terror groups. That's according to the Washington Post, citing the newspaper's review of internal FBI figures. In 2018, 120 domestic terrorism suspects were arrested, compared to 100 people linked to international groups such as the Islamic State or Al-Qaeda. The figures illustrate why officials and politicians debate how to focus U.S. national security resources. The debate intensified after the arrest last month of Coast Guard Lieutenant Christopher Hasson, a 49-year-old alleged white nationalist inspired by Anders Behring Breivik, who killed 77 people in Norway in 2011. Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell said that interest rates are appropriate and roughly neutral, and the U.S. Central Bank does not feel any hurry to change them again. The comments underscored that the Fed had pivoted from its policy of slowly and steadily raising rates to keep the improving economy from overheating, and would instead monitor how the slowing global economy will affect the U.S. In an interview with CBS's 60 Minutes, Powell said the slowing economies of China and Europe create the biggest risks for the U.S., which otherwise has a strengthening economy. Powell also said President Trump's criticism of Fed rate hikes had nothing to do with the January decision to pause the increases. A bidding war for supercomputer chip maker Mellanox ended Monday, with NVIDIA announcing it will acquire the San Jose-based company for nearly $7 billion. NVIDIA said the combined company will power more than half of the world's 500 largest computers. NVIDIA beat out industry giants Microsoft and Intel for Mellanox. All three companies offered prices above Mellanox's market capitalization of $5.9 billion when markets closed Friday. Mellanox, originally founded in Israel, has a long history of collaboration and joint innovation with NVIDIA. NVIDIA announced at the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas in January an autopilot system for self-driving vehicles called NVIDIA Drive. It's the company's most significant foray into the auto industry. Monday's announcement will allow NVIDIA to reduce its reliance on graphic processing units, or GPUs. The European Union announced that beginning in 2021, American travelers will need to apply for a visa to visit the Schengen area, a 26-country zone on the European continent that does have internal borders. Americans, who can currently spend up to 90 days in the Schengen zone without a visa, will need a valid passport, an email account, and a credit or debit card to apply for the visa. Once retrieved, the visa will remain valid for 3 years, and carriers will be able to enter the Schengen countries as many times as possible within that span. The EU said it had recently decided to improve their security level to avoid any further problems with illegal migration and terrorism. And that's your update for this Monday, March 11th, 2019. I'm Larry Rice. Thanks so much for listening and for supporting this podcast, and I hope you have a wonderful week.